over 6 years, send him an email, put him in a CRM, emailed him a couple times a year. We built like almost a friendship. Like there was some level of reverence there. And then when it was time to sell, he's like, time for you to buy it. Right.
Yeah.
And it was the easiest transaction of all time.
Wow.
Because he knew the whole time that we had built this rapport over a really long period of time.
Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. We have a very interesting guest today, a guest that I'm actually going to be doing business with, and he's going to be helping coach you guys on smaller multifamily deals. His name's Axel Ragnarsson, and Axel has tremendous amount of experience. Actually has a course around off-market multifamily deals, which is smaller deals. I pretty much focus on the larger deals on the show. So we're like, hey, we're missing something really important here. So we're going to have a very interesting conversation you don't want to miss. Welcome to the show, brother.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Really glad to have you here, my friend. Well, why don't we get started just by having you tell a little bit of your story, where you came from, why smaller multifamily, just kind of give us your bio.
Give you the rundown. Yeah. So I live in Boston, Mass. Originally grew up in New Hampshire. So originally from New England, this whole life in New England. Started buying small multifamily properties back in college. I guess the reason I got into real estate was I wanted to flip houses, but as I learned more about flipping houses at the time, I realized that you doing the work and getting paid once instead of in perpetuity was kind of a poor trade. So as I was learning about that business, I was learning about how to find deals and go direct to seller and market, prospect to owners and all of that. And said, well, let's take all these strategies that people use to find single family deals and apply them to small multifamily at the time. So this is back in the 2016, 2017 timeframe. And basically just started buying small multifamily properties that were 2 to 4 units in size. So residential multifamily. And,
in the Boston area?
In southern New Hampshire. So about an hour north of Boston for those that are unfamiliar with New England. Yeah. But in general, at the time, I was growing a portfolio, using a lot of private money financing to actually buy these deals. In a few years, built a portfolio of 50, 60 units or so that basically paid for the lifestyle, paid the rent, all of that. And then around 2020 or so, realized that I wanted to scale the business a little bit more, actually grow the business a little bit more intentionally, and kind of pour some gas on the fire. So around that time frame, we started raising some money. We made some hires internally to continue building out the deal sourcing side of the business. And over the last 4 years or so, we've really grown the business into something similar that I'm sure in terms of a lot of the folks you have on the show, who you chat with, who you coach, et cetera, who are raising capital to go out there and buy a value-add multifamily. But instead of focusing on larger deals, we really went all in on going direct to seller to find smaller deals, which I define as 10 to 50 units in size. And we've done a lot of those deals. We found a lot of deals. We built a portfolio of just around 500 units or so that is entirely comprised of deals that are anywhere from 5 to 50 units in size. So we built a portfolio of roughly 400, 500 units or so here. Primarily in the last 5 years is where a lot of that growth has occurred. We've been raising money from LPs to do so. We've started a property management company. But basically, the business has fundamentally been built around the idea of going direct to seller to find off-market multifamily deals, as well as building our relationships with all of the key deal finders is how I define them in our target markets. And that's really where we found our competitive edge, is being able to buy deals at a lower basis, at a lower cost than other folks are, who are not doing everything that we're doing and are just waiting on the brokers to send out their deals. And that's enabled us to very rapidly grow the business in terms of taking down a number of deals and units in a short period of time. And also, that in conjunction with raising money has helped as well. But that's really the core competency in our business is going out there and being able to find these 10 to 50 unit deals at a discounted price and leveraging all of the systems and resources and basically tactics that we've developed over the years to do that at scale, or at some reasonable scale, to where we can buy a couple hundred units a year,
right,
predictably.
Nice. Well, I think we stumbled across you and your course around off-market multifamily deals that you created. And I know you really don't even market it that much. I think that's how we connected. But we've come to an understanding, and the plan is, guys, because I think that's a niche that I really haven't given any attention to. Or like, how can we add more value? It's always how can we add more value, and you're the perfect solution to that gap in our educational programs. And so, let's go a little bit micro as to the sorts of things that you teach. And I mean, you guys, you're gonna see interviews with just him doing one of two things: either interviewing a guest himself around small multifamily. You're also going to see segments where he's just teaching for a bit and educating you guys. So I be looking for those episodes for sure. But let's go a little micro right now. So what are some of the areas of that business model that people can expect to hear about?
Absolutely. So we utilize really three main strategies from a direct-to-seller standpoint. And then we also do a lot from a relationship development standpoint that's outside of what I think a lot of multifamily investors do. So I'll start with the actual direct-to-seller marketing and prospecting, which is really the meat and potatoes of what we talk about both in the program. And then I think just in terms of what folks probably want to hear a little bit more about is how do I actually get in front of an owner who's interested in selling and establish a relationship, start a conversation before they either go out to the marketplace themselves or they engage a broker, et cetera. So a lot of these strategies people are going to be familiar with,
right?
But there's a bit of a different flavor as it relates to going directly to a multifamily owner versus going to a single family owner. So there's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram here, but the actual approach and message is a little bit different. So in our business, we leverage direct mail marketing, direct to seller, cold calling, basically prospecting directly to owners. And then we also email and text owners directly. And it depends on who the owner is to dictate which of those strategies we use. But from a high level, the way that we think about it is there's a lot of multifamily investors who have a desire to go direct to seller that do either one out of those three things or maybe two out of those three, but very few do all three. And the way we think about it is we have our list of properties that we'd like to buy, and maybe we can talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And then we're actually going out there, and our objective here is not to go out there and buy a deal, but to establish relationships with the owners. And I think we all know in multifamily, we're speaking to people who have a sense of what their property's worth. They have a sense of the real estate investing game. They kind of understand the best way to sell and market their property, even at just at a fundamental high level.
A lot more than a single family.
A lot more than a single family owner, right? And granted that it's a bit of a different spectrum when you're talking the 10 to 50 unit average owner versus somebody that owns a 100+ unit complex. Those are two very different sellers.
Correct.
But they still have, they've done well enough in life to buy a 20 unit apartment building. They have some level of understanding of how to best maximize the sale. But what we're really trying to do is we want to get in front of these owners. We want to introduce ourselves. We want to do a few different things, which is establish our ability to close, establish some level of credibility. We want to make it as easy of a transaction on the seller as we possibly can, which there's some things within that bucket we could maybe talk about. And then we also want to put ourselves in a position where we are just top of mind and we're in front of them throughout the cycle of their ownership. So the inverse of that, which is what typically doesn't happen, is we send a mail or send an owner a piece of direct mail and they immediately call us and say, all right, I want to sell it right now. That's typically not how it works in the multifamily space. So a lot of what we do is sending mail over the course of multiple years, a very long-term approach here, calling over the course of a long period of time, putting them on an email list and emailing them over a long period of time, and methodically building that relationship so that when there is that triggering event, whether it's I want to retire and move to Florida, I own this with a partner and my partner wants to retire, and we figured we'd just sell it instead of me taking it over. I'm getting divorced or I'm inheriting, whatever the triggering event is, we've been top of mind with them for a long period of time, and then they call us. And it's a little different than the marketing in the single family world, which is
more immediate.
We'll buy your house fast for cash. That's not really motivating the multifamily owner. So that is typically what we're doing at a high level, is leveraging those three approaches. And then if you'd like, I can talk about what we do on the actual relationship development side.
No, for sure. Let's do that next, because
Perfect.
One of the things I talk about at my boot camps and with my students is, targeting sellers that have owned a while, that maybe have owned 20 years for several reasons. One, they're typically retirees. Typically, they're not going to take that money from that investment and put it into another high-risk investment. They're going to throw it in the bank and live on the cash flow. Mm-hmm. So they're ripe for seller financing. And, the relationship building is one of the most critical pieces, especially with an older demographic. It's called seller bonding. Yep. Once and you're building that relationship, and I'm sure you know this and probably teach it, and that is, if you're in front of an elderly seller, focus on the relationship before you focus on the freaking deal, because they're relationship driven, right?
100%. And in reality, the dollars and the cents conversation will come, but it doesn't come in the beginning because you haven't built any level of trust or rapport.
That you got to build rapport.
And trust is the other big piece of this too, where, again, in multifamily, right, there has to be some mutual trust, and it's specifically from a seller to a buyer, to a potential buyer, where if I put this under contract with you, are you going to be able to buy the property, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a significantly higher concern for a multifamily owner than it is, Aunt Sally, who inherited her husband's rental property, who just wants to get rid of it.
Yeah, who doesn't understand the deal could fall through.
Exactly.
A multifamily owner knows deals fall through.
And there's a lot of there's another component to this as well, where a lot of the owners that we buy from are individuals who are self-managing and have developed relationships with their residents and their tenants over the years.
Right.
And they want to be extremely careful about approaching the sales process with them, even letting them know that they're thinking about selling the building. So there are so many little hurdles that you have to overcome, and that takes time.
Let me explain the one you just mentioned. If you've got residents that think you're going to sell and the rent's going to go up, they could leave. Yeah. And then that property goes under contract and falls through. That seller's lost tenants because of a debacle with a failed deal. So
And a little micro point here, and I'm kind of narrowing down to the micro, but something that we literally put on our direct mail and something that we include in direct emails to owners is, we are not going to disturb your tenants more than, twice during the entire transaction period. Physical inspections, appraisal. And then sometimes we actually call out how many units we're going to disturb, and we'll just even come up and say up front, we can be the insurance company, we can be the bank, we can be whoever you want us to be, we can be a partner of yours or something along those lines, so that process is least stressful for the owner as it possibly can be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the sophisticated investors out there, that are maybe not worried about that, right? They're looking at this as more of a financial transaction. They might think, well, what's the big deal there? Why does it matter? You just outlined one of the financial reasons, but for a lot of the sellers that we're speaking with, they may have owned this building, as you mentioned, for 10, 15, 20 years. They may have individuals living there who have lived there for 5, 10,
they may be
years.
Friends.
Exactly. Friends. They have oftentimes financial relationships because they have somebody here at a discounted rent doing this, mowing the lawn and doing the maintenance. And it's oftentimes a very convoluted ownership situation as it relates to their relationship with the tenants. So, and for them, that can be a real driving force behind who they decide to sell the building to. And how they approach that deal. So you have to spend a lot of time making people comfortable, making sellers comfortable with all of this, your ability to close, what your plans are with the building after you actually buy it.
Believe it or not, that matters. A lot of sellers. A lot of sellers want to know what you plan to do, and that's their pride and joy, and they don't want to see it go down the toilet. And it's really interesting, the level of emotion involved with a transaction like that. Like in my world, 100 unit, it's all dollars and cents. But when you're dealing with an owner that's their biggest investment in life. There's a lot of emotion wrapped up in it. And so, we talked for a minute about relationships and it's such a critical piece. And you start with the rapport, you build rapport, you find commonality, and just connect. And I'll tell you something kind of interesting I learned from Tony Robbins, and that is, when two people are in rapport, the person that has the most certainty about the subject matter being discussed will always influence the other person. Which is an interesting thing to know. But those relationships are critical. And you talked about ease of sale. Let's circle back to that for a second, where you can ease a seller's mind as it relates to the tenant communication. What's going to happen to the tenants after you buy? What's going to happen to the property after you buy? Deal with these emotional components that you don't, like I say, you don't typically encounter in my world. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that that you're communicating in that rapport building or trust building, not necessarily in person, like through your communications. Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. So the easy way to start this, I guess, conversation is to even just look at, for example, what we put in a direct mail piece.
Okay.
And oftentimes what we're doing in our other methods of communication is repackaging what we're communicating in a direct mail piece, which is obviously written language. So it's over the phone. We maybe we're
tightening it can be the same message in every place, right?
Same message in every place, right? But we're adjusting it slightly for whatever the medium is, right?
Got it.
Direct mail piece, you can put a lot of words on a piece of paper. Cold call, you got to be brief, right? But in an email, you're somewhere in the middle. But it's all a different flavor.
Do you
of the
text
same
as
thing.
well?
We do some texting.
Okay.
But we do it. We don't mass
built?
SMS because there's challenges from it. So one-to-one texting, like off a personal cell phone, we'll do.
Gotcha.
But that's typically once we've come into contact with
Right.
the seller, we'll move it over to text because most people like that. But in general, we think about it in 3 tiers, right? The first component of our messaging is we need to tell them who we are and why it's worth for them to speak with us, why it's not a waste of their time. Because that's, again, we're dealing with people who are probably successful in life, whether it's through real estate investing, whether they had another business and they bought an apartment community. These people don't have time to waste. They're not looking to just get on the phone with any old Joe here that's just going to talk their ear off and not get anywhere. So it's, hey, I'm so-and-so with so-and-so. We own X amount of units in this market. If you own some units in that market, we are local investors. Maybe you include the management company or you include your own management company if you're managing the property. What have you bought in the last 12 months? Have you been doing deals? Have you been active in the marketplace? Some type of information that's going to say, okay, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. He's able to buy the property. He's been active. He's in the marketplace. He's not an out-of-state guy that's never bought anything here that probably doesn't understand what's going on. We're breaking down some initial barriers.
Let me interject something, if I may. One of the things I have my students do is make sure that they put the property address that they're emailing or mailing about in literally the first line. So you got the owner's name and address. The first line has that. So they recognize that it's about a property that they own. Do you do that or something like that?
We do right in the second paragraph, but we bold it and italicize it so it draws your eye right to it. But it's really important, as you mentioned, to reference the property that they have.
Right.
That second paragraph is just the reason we're reaching out, right? I mean, it's very straightforward. It's we're actively looking to grow our portfolio. We would love to chat with you about your building at X, right? We include the address there. We always put or any other properties that you may own that you're interested in selling. That's a really key.
Oh yeah, let me tell you why that's key.
Yep.
I did a mailer here of smaller multifamily here in Florida because I own a management company here, and I mailed 30 to 50 units because I didn't want something small. Well, the guy called me and said, hey, I got this triplex. You can just take over the payments on it. I tell a funny story about that. I encountered fleas there, but I won't waste time with that now. But no, just to hammer home what you just said. Yeah.
Because, and that's the thing, again, in multifamily, right? You have owners that own a number of buildings. They may really like this building that you're mailing them about, but they may have this other one that they're like, I own it with a guy who I don't really like, and I'd rather just sell that one. So you always want to ask, or any other properties that you may have. And then quickly discuss why it's of benefit to engage in a conversation with you, right? And this is where you can talk about, we can offer a flexible closing timeline, either short or long, if you want to go and identify a 1031 exchange. Some sellers want they like the idea of having a longer closing period of time.
Sure.
No financing contingency, sizable deposit. Some of the money stuff is what we're going to talk about here. And then we get into the minimal intrusion to your tenants, which obviously speaks to a lot of folks.
You probably bring up the fact there's no commission.
Yep, and that's the big one, and no broker commission, which will usually, and then we'll put in parentheses, 5% plus. And if we're mailing a targeted enough list to where we can put like an average range of what we're going to be offering for those, we'll include a dollar amount there to really highlight that. If you have a tight list of 5 to 10 unit properties, you might be able to, and that's going to be $500,000 to $1 million types of deals in your market, you can put in $25,000 to $50,000, right? And
that you're saving in commissions. Yeah.
And then third paragraph is very straightforward as it relates to what we're hoping to get out of our conversation. Hey, if you're looking to sell, we would love to chat about it. But if you're not, we would love the opportunity to just meet another active investor in our marketplace and get to know your business.
That's super smart.
Because our objective here is we're not trying to rifle this out, whether it's an email, a call, or a piece of direct mail, and buy their property right then and there. It goes back to what I mentioned earlier. we're trying to build this relationship over a longer period of time, because that's when you build that trust to actually go out there and earn the right to make them an offer when it comes time to sell. So we close it out with that. Hey, if you don't want to sell, that's totally fine. We would just love to meet another person. Maybe we can exchange contacts, exchange vendors. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your goals, right? And it's almost like I'm reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn trying to get on an introductory phone call. And then we round it out with
personalize the letter a little bit too, where it's like coming from one person, like coming from you rather than a company.
Yep. I put my name on there, my face. We still have our company logo because it helps to establish that credibility.
Right.
Then they can go look up the company as well, and they go to our website. They see we own other stuff, and because the credibility thing is big. I really want to knock that out and touch on that right off the rip. But then we close it out with a picture of my name, personal cell phone number, all of that fun stuff, and that's what we send out. And then it's that messaging just repackaged slightly depending on the medium. But it's established credibility, why it's of benefit to work with us if they do want to sell. And then we round it out with, even if you don't want to sell, we still have some interest in just talking and getting to know you and learning more about your business, your objectives, and all that. And most of the people that reach out, they're like, oh, hey, it's cool to meet another guy who's buying multifamily and, so-and-so.
Right.
Yeah, I might be interested in selling this. Hey, if you want to make me an offer, that's fine. Maybe he's not really a seller. The timing's not right. But you do that over 6, 12, 18 months. And then next thing you know, he's like, oh, I actually really do want to sell.
Yeah, he's got a life event.
I really do want to sell it.
You always have to have motivation. I mean, I tell people, because I talk about mailing as well for a little bit in my boot camps, and you got to catch them when they're motivated. Sometimes I'll get emails or texts or DMs from people like, I'm trying to get this seller to sell, and I'm like, you're trying to push a rope, brother. You're not gonna get a seller to sell. You have to catch them when they're motivated. So that's why mailing is not a once and done thing. You've got to do it over a period of time. And we've bought deals where someone's held on to one of our cards for months.
Oh yeah,
that happens a lot.
All the time. Yeah, we've bought deals where, we're closing a deal right now where we contacted the first time we contacted the seller was 6 years ago.
Wow.
And this was back when I was just like out of college. I was just calling people up, and over 6 years, send him an email and put him in a CRM, emailed him a couple times a year. We built like almost a friendship. Like there was some level of reverence there. And then when it was time to sell, he's like, time for you to buy it. Right. Yeah. And it was the easiest transaction of all time.
Wow. Because
he knew the whole time that we had built this rapport over a really long period of time.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, right, a lot of people reach out to me. They're like, how do I convince the seller to negotiate a price with this? And you can negotiate, obviously you can negotiate great pricing, but you're never going to convince the seller to sell. And really the objective fundamentally needs to be, you just want to hang around the rim and catch the rebounds and be around when the time comes.
Yep.
In terms of when they actually convince themselves to sell, right? Yeah. And then you're in the position of actually buying a great deal. And this is why we're doing this, right? We want to buy really great deals. We want to buy deals at 15, 20, 25% below market value. And you're never really going to convince someone who's not interested in selling to take a discount like that. It's going to be some other triggering event, as you mentioned.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And we should have said that right out of the gate. This is how you buy deals at a discount, okay? Yeah. Axel will be teaching on the show here, and his off-market multifamily deals course is going to be available to my warriors. You guys know about my warrior program, my coaching program. That's just going to be a value add for them that's included in our program. But the training around this is super critical, because I don't spend a ton of time on this on the off market. I've got students that came over from the flipping and wholesaling world that do it very successfully because it's similar mindsets, but I've never really trained it, and so I'm really super excited to have you teach my peeps how to do this. Now, talk a little bit about, I talked a little bit about seller bonding, and I tell the story. I've literally, where I've bonded with elderly sellers just to get seller financing. Do you ever do seller financing on your deals?
We do, yeah, occasionally. Okay. We're doing one right now, actually.
Okay.
It's a small deal, 12 units, it's $1.8 million, but carrying a big note back, and it, again, came with trust.
Right.
Long period of time, demonstrating that we were a worthy borrower, right? It's oftentimes the hurdle you have to overcome with a seller who's looking to seller finance.
Right.
So we do it, yeah.
Well, I tell a story. I've got a couple of examples where I've bonded with sellers. One allowed me to make no down payment because he trusted me, just wanted the payments, didn't want the big tax hit year one. And another one where I literally didn't make payments for a year because the property needed so much freaking work. I'm like, listen, I got to put the money into the property first. It was the truth, and I'd bonded with them, and they allowed me to do it. So, that seller bonding piece is super important. So as you're building this infrastructure and this business, and there are a lot of other components to this, a lot of other relationships you need to build. Why don't we talk about that a little bit? Give some insight on that.
For sure. So direct to seller, great for finding those really meaty deals, big discounts. Those are typically going to produce deals on the smaller end of the range we've been talking about, right? 5 to 30, 40, 50 units. If you want to start finding off-market deals where it's not gone through a brokered process, right? Where there's a broker attached, they've gone through their full marketing process. Right. And you still want to buy stuff that's a little bit larger. Oftentimes those are still going to come through relationships. Somebody knows a guy who might be interested in selling. How do you become the person that person is thinking of when they have an opportunity like that hits their desk or their network or what have you? So we spend just as much time building relationships with all of the key deal finders as we do going direct to seller. And when I say key deal finders, obviously brokers are the big one, right? Brokers are still going to transact the vast majority of deals on the marketplace, so they're number one. But there are a lot of other people that see deals. So
you're building relationships with brokers to send you deals?
Yes, we are. Granted, it's not a large percentage of the deals we do. It's a small percentage, but that's still how we're going to get those bigger deals, the stuff that's 50 plus.
Let me interject something here.
Yeah.
Another thing that I talk about in my program as well is having a relationship with a residential agent or broker in that market, because if a person with a 10 or 20 unit or 30 unit is selling, or even 100 units sometimes, because I can tell a story about that, they'll very often go to their residential agent or broker not realizing they haven't got a freaking clue what to do with that property. But they'll take the listing because they want the freaking commission, and they'll throw it in the residential MLS because that's all they know and have. And you can get phenomenal deals if you've got, that's kind of a ninja trick. If you've got a relationship in your local market with a residential agent or broker, and you tell them, hey, anything multifamily hits, let me know, brother, because our sister, whatever, and we'll hit it. So
100%.
Okay.
I totally agree. Okay. We've done a handful of deals like that where, and it's interesting. It's all about just being in the mix, right? You just want to be around the hoop. I keep using that analogy, but for example, we had a residential agent reach out to us, and I'll back into how we developed the relationship with her and how you can do it at scale, right after this quick story. But she came to us with 9 units. It was a very small deal. And it was a 6-unit and a 3-unit. Seller wanted to sell both of them at the same time. And as we started developing the relationship with the residential agent that brought us the deal, we actually found out that the seller might be interested in selling more. And next thing you know, we're buying 25 units off of the seller because we kept pulling the thread. And she went back and, leveraged her relationship with the seller. And then a small deal became a decent sized deal. It was a $3.5 million deal, right? It was something of reasonable size. And the way that we actually got in touch with her, and this is just a quick little tactical tip, is if you go out there and you get all of the individuals who are playing in the real estate sector, the space, that are involved in deal making, and get them on an email list and develop some level of relationship with them over time just by sending a monthly newsletter, updating them on what you're doing in your business, updating them on maybe some stuff that's happened in the marketplace, so some value-add information, rounding it out with we're in the market to buy X. If you're a residential agent and you bring us a deal, the seller won't pay your commission, we can help. If you're a wholesaler and this deal doesn't really work for your buyer's list, we can pay you, et cetera, et cetera. Doing that over time, again, you're starting to build mind share, right? You're starting to become the person that people think of when they're when they're in a specific marketplace trying to sell these deals. And that's how we actually got this one. And again, to define who deal finders are, because I think oftentimes people just think brokers, right? And they are the ones that are doing the majority of the deals for sure. But the first person to typically know that a seller might be interested in selling a property is the property management company, because the seller's probably going to try and squeeze that last little bit out of the rent roll or squeeze the last little bit of value, do some cleanup. Property managers are typically the first people to know that a seller is considering selling because they're doing all the stuff with them to get it ready for sale.
And they want to continue to manage that freaking property after it sells.
Exactly.
So if you've got a relationship with them, yeah, absolutely.
And offer incentives to your PM to bring you deals, potentially. Pay them.
Right.
And I think sometimes people forget this. They think that just developing the relationship is enough, and it oftentimes is.
Right.
But if you really want to kill an ant with a hammer and confirm that you are truly the first call, offer some type of buy-side commission to a PM or incentivize them in some other way. You keep the business and we'll compensate you.
Yeah.
Title companies are sitting between sellers and buyers all day long, all of the time, or closing attorneys, depending on how they're referred to in your state. let's just say that they see a seller who's sold a couple properties over a period of time. They might be a large owner. It might be an indication that they're willing to sell some other stuff that they're getting out of the business. We incentivize title companies to go and at least give us a heads up or some information that a seller is in the process of selling some of their properties, or you
do
they're
this
sitting
with
at
phone calls. You just call them and
call them up, and we work with a handful of title companies, and this does get easier as you do a higher volume of deals.
Of course.
But they are somebody again that has this information. GCs, other vendors, oftentimes they're going to be doing work for owners that may be looking to sell.
Painters, landscapers, general contractors, because a seller will fix up a place before they sell it. Definitely want to bonus them if they tell you about a deal.
And to a lot of folks, this seems like a ton of work. Well, there's a ton of vendors, there's a ton of electricians and painters, etc. And I guess it depends on the size of your marketplace, but it's likely that there are a lot of management companies and brokers and residential agents that may be brokering these deals and wholesalers. But you can hack the process of getting to know all of them by going to either the meetups, getting in the Facebook groups, asking your PM for who are the vendors that you use, right? And now you've got a big vendor list. You can kind of hack your way to developing a Rolodex of these individuals.
And an email list of these individuals.
And an email list. Right. And it's not like you have to call them every week. Hey, you know anyone who wants to sell?
Right.
You put them on an email list. Introduce yourself before you do so they're not coming out of the total blue here.
Right.
And then on a monthly basis, you spend a couple of hours putting together a nicely worded, value add, thoughtful email, and you send it out. That's a 2 to 5 hour a week monthly commitment on an ongoing basis that most people don't do. Hardly anybody does this, consistently. And you're basically putting your name, your face, and what you want to buy in front of them on a monthly basis. And that is how you scale the relationship development. And we do a ton of deals just through, whether it's a residential agent or our PM company, or the title company thing is big, and it's funny. Title companies aren't really seen as like a deal source.
I've never heard that one before, honestly.
But they're like, hey, by the way, like so and so sold a few deals, like just a heads up, and it's okay. So now I know to go give them a call.
Right.
And this is also a funny little tidbit, but again, you can go really deep within all of these different verticals once you're in there and you're getting your hands dirty.
Right.
We know who the bad management companies are in our marketplace. The ones that take forever to lease up the units. They don't do a good job. They lease for too low. Terrible, service. We prospect directly to their clients.
Oh, that's smart. That's actually really smart.
Yeah. And so, I have a virtual assistant every month. She pulls the list of all of the units they're leasing. We know that they suck at leasing.
Right.
And we just prospect directly to those owners because they're probably in the process of, my management company is not filling this up quickly. I'm getting a little stressed.
Oh, yeah.
Do I change? Most sellers don't want to change management companies. They'd rather just sell the building. That's oftentimes a decision, fork in the road. And oftentimes sellers are like, I'll just sell it and just get out of it. So we've bought deals from doing that. So once you start to really get in there and you get your hands dirty and you start to really become familiar with who the players are in your market, then you can focus your relationship development on those types of individuals as well. And that in conjunction with all of the direct-to-seller deals, now you're really starting to build the top of your funnel in such a way to where you're looking at a much larger number of deals than if you were just waiting on the brokered stuff.
Yeah, and you might be thinking, well, this seems like a lot of work. Well, okay. Do you want to have cash flow for life? Do you want to be able to retire? Yeah, you're going to grind for a few years like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And that's what this takes.
Yeah.
I will tell you, if you're in my email chain, either on the investment side or on the thought leadership side, you're going to get an email from me literally every week. You're going to see content going out on social every single week. And I'm trying to add value. And that's exactly what Axel's doing here, is just adding value. And, the most successful people on the freaking planet are the ones that add the most value, period.
Yeah. And to quickly touch on, because so many people are like, does this really work? Is it really worth it? Et cetera, right?
Right.
It seems like a lot of time, a lot of energy.
Right.
Okay, but let's just say let's say you're in a market where a 20-unit property sells for $100,000 a unit, sells for $2 million.
Right.
Okay, let's say you buy that just 10% below market value, which is incredibly achievable. That's not a crazy deal by any means. That's very achievable if you're doing this for any reasonable amount of time.
Sure.
So you're paying 1.8. That's $200,000 in equity. That's real money. That's a substantial amount of money. And let's say you're just using your own money for ease of conversation. You're putting 25% down. We'll strip the transaction costs, keep it simple. You're putting down $500,000. Well, now your $500,000 at closing is now $700K in equity. That is a really meaningful return immediately on your capital. And let's say you find even a slightly better deal, 15, 20% below. You do the math at home. It's very meaningful in terms of the impact that buying a deal below market value has on your returns and on the ability to compound your capital and scale your business, it's one of the most important components of the entire process, if not the most important component.
And if you don't have that kind of cash on hand, you pull a deal out of the woodwork, you're going to find money to invest in it. Yeah. Okay, if it's a value add, where you're buying it below market like that, you're gonna be able to find the money you'll be able to raise the money to do the deal. And hell, we just closed on a 200 unit in San Antonio, about 40% below market value. Okay, so that's starting to happen, and that makes a huge difference in your returns and everything else. Okay. So what sort of tools do you utilize in your business? And speak to someone that's just getting started versus, obviously you're going to have all sorts of things that you've evolved into, but give us kind of a, maybe even a progression in the sort of tools that someone would need.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like the word progression there because it does change over time.
Right.
Big three tools to handle what we're talking about here. You need some kind of data provider to pull all of the data so that you can start going out there and going direct to seller. Mm-hmm. You need some kind of CRM or something that's going to solve the follow-up challenge for you. And then you should have some kind of email marketing service to do all of this stuff as it relates to building the relationships at scale in your marketplace. So we'll start with data.
Yeah. We're talking about lists here.
We're talking about lists.
Yeah.
Lists of properties with owner information that we can call them up and say, hey man, I want to buy your property. So list source is still a great source of data, right? That's the one that I think a lot of folks are familiar with. Depending on...
No, actually I wasn't. List source is the name of the list?
List source, yeah, okay. List source. They're a large data provider for single family data. A lot of house flippers use them.
Okay.
But they still provide good multifamily data as well.
Okay.
The only, again, little asterisk here for all the listeners is sometimes when you start getting into much larger communities where you have 100 unit community with, call it 5 20 unit buildings and they have individual addresses, list source may pull those as 5 individual 20 unit buildings. So you might get a little weird when you get large, very large, but for really 5 to 50 units, list source is still going to be a pretty good data source for you.
Okay.
It's simple as going on there. You filter down your list, you pay for the data, and now you have your list.
Let me add something here. There's a lot of BS in the list business. Okay, there's a lot of guys that will sell lists over and over and over again, and a lot of them are crap. So you definitely want to use a credible list provider.
Yeah.
Okay, so list source is a good one. Okay.
List source is like straight to the data source. A lot of people that sell their lists through some of their repackaged direct to seller software, they're just going to list source. List source is the source for a lot of those folks.
Okay.
If you want to spend a little bit more money, you can go the Reonomy route if you want an ongoing subscription. Yep, Crexy. Reonomy is expensive. It's a monthly recurring payment.
Right.
Similar to like a CoStar, but you can pull lists every month. Mm-hmm. Or if you want to, really try to be frugal about it or just spend a little bit more time on it, go out to the mortgage brokers in your space, the real estate brokers, and ask them if they can pull a CoStar list for you, right? And see if they can kind of do that. And maybe they sell it to you, they give it to you, what have you. CoStar is the gold standard for multifamily data.
Or if you really want to be frugal, get your ass to the county and go on the county's website and pull it yourself.
that would be
okay. I mean, we used to do that when I was looking up mobile home parks. Well, I had VAs do it, but yeah, you can actually pull the list yourself. But it's a lot of brain damage. But you can do it.
You certainly can. Yeah. Again, if you're on a budget, right, you want to just get a list, get after it. List source is a great place to start. Okay. Now there are kind of sub tiers to this as well, though. So list source is going to give you property address, the mailing address for the owner name, but they're not going to give you their phone number, their email, or anything like that. So then you need to go and do what we call a skip trace, right? You need to go out there and skip trace the data so that you can actually find all of their information. There are dozens of services that do this. I'll shout out a couple.
Okay.
Lead Sherpa is a good one.
Lead Sherpa.
Sherpa.
Mm-hmm.
Batch Leads is one that we've used.
Okay.
And then depending on how robust your CRM is, which I'll get to in a moment, some CRMs have that ability as well built in if it's a real estate specific CRM.
Oh, really?
But Lead Sherpa is a fine solution, and that'll get you,
most phone numbers.
A good data, yeah.
I know. Crexy does it as well because my son was using it for roofing contracts. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but I mean. He was getting phone numbers from Crexy, I remember. But okay.
There's a lot. If you just Google, skip trace ownership information, there's going to be a lot of resources. But They're all basically the same flavor. Lead Chirp is one we've used.
Okay.
So you've now got your list, right? You filtered it down, et cetera. You've got your phone numbers, your emails, and now you're going out there and you're doing everything we talked about. You're reaching out to these owners. But what do you do when the owner comes back to you and says, I'm not interested, call me back in 6 months, which is going to be the vast majority of the conversations you have.
Sure.
You have to figure out some way to systematize this process or to capture all of this information. Mm-hmm. If you got a small list, 100 to 500 properties, maybe at any given time you're balancing 15, 20, 25, 30 conversations, leads. You could probably get away with doing it in a Google Sheets or something.
No, you'd be stupid to do that because there's free CRMs out there that could handle
exactly.
that.
Exactly. You could get away with it, but it's not really. It doesn't make sense. You can use a Zoho, a HubSpot. These are free resources.
HubSpot has a free version. Zoho has a free version. Insightly has a free version. Really Simple Systems has a free version. I would recommend HubSpot out of those 4 selections. We use HubSpot in a big. You as well. Yep. Yeah, we use them in a big way. I mean, we spend thousands a month with them, but they're very robust.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to highly recommend HubSpot, and I get nothing for doing that. But
fundamentally, all you got to do is really your objective here is you want to put the opportunity and the lead in with the address and name. You want to take some notes, schedule follow-up tasks. That's really the 80-20 of what we're trying to do here.
That's it. And the notes are important too, because when you talk to Henry Smith and he said his wife Mabel is not doing well, you'll forget that, and you call Henry back in 6 months and ask how Mabel's doing. You've built instant rapport.
Exactly.
So you take personal notes on these people, you put them in the CRM, and when you follow up, you can use those to instantly create rapport again. Yeah,
100%. And also, you need a place to store information that's not even related to the seller situation, but just the building. Yeah. Like are the utilities separate? What are the rents? Like, because you're going to capture some of that information as you have these conversations. It's got to live somewhere.
And you may pull a report offline that you want to drop into the CRM as well. Like maybe
it's a tax card.
Exactly. A tax card. Exactly.
As you scale and as you do more direct to seller marketing and prospecting, you're probably gonna outgrow a free version.
Yeah,
of
you'll
CRM.
have to pay a little bit. Yeah.
So we absolutely love this tool, Resimpli, Re-Simpli. Basically, it's spelled Resimpli. Okay. It's a real estate investor focused CRM that has loads of integrations.
Okay. So I shouldn't sell HubSpot. Okay. Re-Simpli.
Yeah. It's specifically and perfectly designed for direct to seller marketing. We've used them for years. We love them.
So instead of HubSpot, you're using
instead of HubSpot.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it. Okay, well, I'm glad you said
but their
something.
minimum plan's a couple $100 a month, right? Okay. So it's one of those where it's like you got to start sending a decent amount of mail. You probably need to be managing 50, 60, 70 conversations. You can call through Resimpli, capture all your conversations. You can text through it.
Well, listen. If it's a couple $100 a month and you're serious about this freaking business, okay, bite the freaking bullet and do it the right way right out of the gate. So go to Resimpli for sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
We love them. There are other platforms that do similar
What do you
things.
like about them, just out of curiosity?
All of our communication lives under that roof. So we
phone calls as well.
So we have you can basically just assign a phone number. You can call through the platform, call off your desktop, your computer with headphones on. You can text through it. So there's texting capabilities. You can email through it, and you can also order and send direct mail through it, and it'll capture your direct mail spend. So for us,
you can order direct mail through it. Oh, that's cool.
They have an integrated direct
everything
mail
else
house.
You said HubSpot does, but does not do direct mail.
And you can upload your custom letter, right? Because we use, we're not sending the buy houses fast postcards. We're sending our own custom direct mail piece. And it sends through there, and then we can track when we've mailed all of these different owners.
You can actually send it through the platform.
It
takes care of the mailing costs and all that stuff.
All of that,
yeah. You can't do that in HubSpot. That's cool as shit.
And it helps because now we're tracking KPIs. We obviously want to know our return on direct mail spend, and we want to get what's our callback
so rate. It'll track that as well.
All of that.
Oh man, that sounds really good. Okay.
So it's a great platform. And then lastly, we have email marketing, right? So you got all your vendors, your deal finders, your service providers. You want to throw them on an email list. You want to start sending your, monthly email out to your list to build your credibility, become omnipresent, all of that fun stuff. There's a million free resources here. You can do this with a HubSpot. You can do this with a MailChimp. Find a free platform. This is something where you really don't have to spend money.
You want to look at the deliverability.
That's the one thing that matters.
Yeah, that's key, because even with HubSpot, sometimes we'll hit the junk list. And then we end up mailing through a portal. I'm digressing here, but you really have to pay attention to that. Yeah.
So the one real cool like inside hack to this that we leverage, because you're right. One, there's sometimes you have deliverability challenges, but also sometimes people don't like to open up a newsletter that feels like it's coming from a marketing service, right? People mentally check out when they see that,
right?
Comparatively to something that looks like a native email to that platform that they're receiving it on. So a tool that we've used is called YAMM, YAMM. It's yet another mail merge is what it stands for. And basically it integrates with your Gmail. Only works if you have Gmail, unfortunately. Okay. If you have Outlook, not going to be for you. But if you have Gmail, it merges with your Gmail and it sends mass emails through the Gmail sending platform. So when you receive it on the receiving end, it just looks like you're receiving an email from a guy who's sending it through his personal Gmail.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So we spend a lot of time doing that, specifically when we're reaching out to sellers. If we want to send out a bit more of a mass email that doesn't look like it's coming from a marketing platform, we'll send important newsletters through that. If we want to send out updates, we send it to both our LPs when we're raising capital for deals, but we'll also send it on the deal finding side to other individuals that are in the marketplace that we want to get in contact with. And it just looks like a regular email. So you're not losing people when they open it up and they see all this branding and all that fun stuff.
Right, that's huge, man.
So long story short, you just need a platform to do that. Again, you want to make sure that you're not, and again, you want to be careful here, right? Without digressing too deep into email deliverability, right. But you don't want to just buy a list of like a bunch of sellers, for example, and just throw them up and just blast an email out to 1,000 people. That's going to murder your sender reputation.
Right.
You want to put people on this list who you've had one-to-one conversations with. So that's why we're very careful with who we put on that list.
Because if you get a lot of people that opt out, it'll hammer your deliverability.
Exactly. Right. And oftentimes we'll send a lot of this stuff, and this is specific to us, through a specific email address that we'll create for this purpose. Ours is acquisitions@alignedrep.com, which is the name of our business, right? You could do deals at so-and-so.com, right? Your company name.com. So that way you're not doing this through your personal inbox and kind of mucking it up a little bit with a ton of inbound, outbound emails. But long story short, those are the big three. You need your data. Yeah. You need a system to follow up with owners and a platform to help you do so. And you need something to help you send emails out at some level of scale.
Nice.
Yeah.
So speak briefly about follow-up.
So the way we think about it, right, and it's obviously a little context dependent in that if we have a seller that's like, I am not interested in selling now, but call me in 2025 or something like that, we have a pretty clear sense of how that's going to go. But if we have a seller that's like, yeah, I'm not looking to sell, but hey, stay in touch, and it's vague, right? And we don't have a sense of how we're going to follow up with them, or no specific timeline given to us by the seller or the owner, we typically just 30, 60, 90 days out, right? We're going to reach out to them in 30 days. If there's still no level of interest, we're going to reach out to them in 60. If there's still no level of interest, then we'll reach out to them in 90. So we're giving them a little bit more space over a longer period of time, but we're still doing so in such a way to where we're staying in their world on an ongoing basis.
Are you reaching out to them? Are you just adding value in some fashion, or are you actually physically reaching out in some where you're trying to get a response?
So we're typically reaching out, and it's going to depend on how much information we have from them. But if there's a specific event that they outlined as something that they needed to do before they were looking to sell,
gotcha. Yeah.
Hey, we still got to turn this unit over, got to renovate this unit. Perfect. That's what we can throw in there. That's an easy thing to include.
Okay.
If we don't have something like that, and we have some personal...
Basically, you're personalizing it, is what you're saying.
We're personalizing it, yeah.
Gotcha.
That's that personalized, we get that follow-up task queued up in the CRM. We're going into their into that lead and actually looking at all the notes we've taken, et cetera,
Gotcha.
And then we're reaching out. Something that we'll oftentimes try to do to really hammer home the personalization is, and this takes a little bit of time in a marketplace, both with your knowledge and then growing your own personal portfolio. We have a few hundred units in a very small area, right? So we know what's going on a street-by-street basis just with our own portfolio. We also own a management company, so we have all of that data as well. And we'll typically reference hey, just by the way, this building sold up the street, or hey, by the way, this business is moving into this area down the street from yours. If we can reference something that's locationally specific to their property, we'll do that.
That's huge.
That takes some time to get there.
Sure.
But you gotta do something to make it personal to them. Building specific, their own personal ownership story specific. When my kid goes off to college, I might think about selling it at that point. Maybe you got something you can leverage there. Or it's just market specific, right? So we want to try to bring some value.
Yeah, market specific is easy because you can have swipe files with local articles, and as long as you've got triggers on Google or whatever. If anything pops up in St. Louis or whatever, the submarket is, you can add value that way. So-and-so is moving in, so-and-so business is moving in or moving out or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, market specific is fairly easy, and you should do it.
And the last thing I'll mention too is we put sellers who we have some good rapport. It's just the timing's not right to actually buy their property. We put them on that same email list that we're sending monthly newsletters to. Right. So on a monthly basis, they're getting just content from us, right? Here's a few articles that are relevant to this specific marketplace that we're buying in. Here's a little intro email updating everyone that's on our list about our business. And then we close it out with, we're in the market to buy X, right? So we're reminding them that we're in the market to buy their property that we're reaching out to them about.
Yeah.
And again, that's 12 times a year.
Right.
That's plenty of communication for them to remember who you are.
Sure.
And then
you're thinking that's a lot of work, right? You're sitting
there
there listening thinking, man, that's a lot of work. Well, I mean, it's not that much work.
It's really not. The newsletter thing is like if there was one takeaway for everybody out there, it's like, just do this newsletter thing.
Right.
It takes you 5 hours a month.
Right.
It takes you 60 hours a year. It's going to give you a deal. You're going to do a deal.
Right.
And
you're building a reputation, and you're building connection, and you're starting to become known.
Yep.
And or stay in your rat race job and W-2 that you hate and be miserable. I mean, those are your options, Do this side hustle. And this is really why I wanted Axel on the show. Now, guys, just to reiterate, Axel is going to actually do some podcast episodes, because I want to really bring this to you guys in a big way, because these smaller deals can be very lucrative, and very often you can take them down yourself, or you take them down with one joint venture partner or something like that, and you end up with more of the deal than you would in the larger multifamily. Don't get me wrong, you make a lot of money in the larger as well, but so it's just a different way to do this business, and it's less zero, so it's less scary, less threatening, which is really why I wanted, this relationship with Axel. And if you're one of my warriors, get excited, because you're going to get his course here in the near future as part of your program. So, and by the way, if you're interested in applying to my warrior program, text the word CRUSH to 72345. So, we can help you crush it, like we've helped my students get over 200,000 units so far. So, well, this has been a lot of fun. Obviously, we can't cover every aspect of this, and I know you're going to be doing these episodes. Speak a little bit about what you're going to be doing in these episodes.
Absolutely. No, and first of all, I look forward to doing them. This was a great conversation.
Yeah.
We're going to touch on numerous different topics, but for example, how you can actually, the simple 5-step process to putting a multifamily deal into contract direct to seller in the next 90 days in terms of tactically what that actually looks like. From a sequencing standpoint, from a process standpoint, I'm going to dive much, much deeper into becoming omnipresent in your local market, which is the key to finding deals through relationships. Talked about that at a pretty high level, but going to get very, very tactical into actually what you can do and when you should be doing and how you should be doing it. All of the real specific stuff that somebody listening can actually just go and start doing immediately. So we're going to get much deeper into a lot of these topics in a real way, and look forward to doing so.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you coming down here to Florida from Mass, and I know some of these episodes you may just do at home on Zoom, but again, they're going to be tactical. You're going to need to take notes, so these are going to be the ones you definitely want to do when you can take notes and whatnot. So it's great to have you down here, brother.
Absolutely, appreciate it.
Yep. All right. So one other quick thing. We encounter so many people that are frankly frustrated. They're looking in the mirror and they're frustrated that they haven't been able to escape the rat race. They haven't been able to build cash flow to the point where they're able to have financial and time freedom with their families. And maybe they see other people buying real estate and creating, incredible cash flow, and they think, well, it's just scary. Buying apartments is intimidating. And I get it. But see, that's why we created our Warrior Mentorship Program. They're our coaching students, and they've had extraordinary results. My students, I've been teaching about 5 years, and they own upwards of 140,000 units now that we know of, right? And we feel like it's just getting going. Now we're looking to grow this group and really take it to the next level. And honestly believe that the greatest transfer of wealth could be upon us right now with this current economic environment. Everything's going on sale. So we're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework, really like a blueprint or a map, literally step by step. And then they're able to leverage our systems and our incredible network to raise money and equity, to find deals and close those deals and build partnerships really nationwide. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more, in our incredible network and take advantage of the unbelievable opportunities that are upon us, you can apply to my Warrior Mentorship Program by texting the word CRUSH to 72345. Or you can go to mentorwithrod.com. And what we'll do is we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out and see if it's a fit. Now, again, you can go to mentorwithrod.com or text the word CRUSH to 72345 to apply, and we will speak soon.